Hello, everybody. This is Baruti Carl Alexander again, and we are at Sourceseeker Hour. This is Sourceseeker Hour, the 179th episode, and I'm with one of my favorite guests of all time, Miss Cassandra Barnes. How are you today, ma'am?
I am fantastic. It has been a wonderful day, and as usual, I love doing these broadcast interviews with you. So I'm very excited to see where we go tonight for this conversation that I know is going to be amazing. So, absolutely, I'm excited to be here.
Did you use the word confrontation?
No, conversation.
Ah, okay. All right. Okay. Uh, we have many times went through all the gamuts in different ways, and it's been a beautiful experience. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot, especially when you came to the conference in Galveston. That was such a beautiful experience. I still remember that. I learned so much about that,
Yeah.
and I thank you for all that you do everywhere around. I
Yeah.
want to welcome my guest coming in. I'm going to let him connect with us. And we are talking about what has the greatest impact in our society today as Black people. Now, it used to be the church. And I think everybody would agree with that it used to be the church. But the church doesn't have as much relevance or program, or not as many people utilize the church for whatever they need. Uh, I first want to go to introduce Brother Ron. How are you doing, sir?
Good, good, good. Thanks for having me, man. How's it going on your end?
Everything is going all right. This is my sister Cassandra Barnes, who's been with me on the show. I would say maybe 8 or 9 times, maybe 10.
Many
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
So,
even begin to know how many times.
Yeah.
and we
But
started back in the studio when I
yeah,
was back in the studio, which was many years ago, maybe 4 years ago. So we have a lot of experience together.
yeah.
Um, I would like to ask you, Cassandra. I know you have a lot of conversation about this particular question. What has happened to the church? Why it doesn't have as much impact today, the Black church?
You're right. I'm very kind of outspoken related to this subject matter because it's one is very close to my heart. And if anybody knows me, I frequently put very challenging um, post on my page dealing specifically with this matter. Just a little bit about me. I am a registered nurse for almost 40 years, and I'm neuropsychotherapist, certified in trauma-informed care, licensed professional counselor, Christian counselor, licensed minister, mental health practice owner. So I come very comprehensive as it relates to my viewpoint and why I feel the way I do. I think I heard a conversation related to this last week, and a lot of things that they were saying was the reason for this shift in the influence of the Black church. I understood where they were coming from, but they, in my opinion, just missed the whole boat. And maybe because the conversation was being hosted by a bishop who has a different lens than the lay person. Um, I am a therapist that's licensed as a minister. I am not a preacher, so I'm not invested in the dynamics related to the church or that the institution as of such from a fivefold ministry lens. My license is related to my therapy assignment and calling. The reason why, one main reason why I think the Black church environment is not as influential is because as a layperson, we're very, very, very disappointed in what the Black church has represented over the last 20, 25 years. I'm 62 years old, so I remember when the Black church was highly revered in the Black community. If you were a pastor or a leader in the Black church, you were revered, you were respected. Certain things you would not do in front of a bishop or pastor or a minister. If you were misbehaving and a minister walked up or somebody in church, you straightened up. You could have been the worst thug. You could be smoking some weed and shooting some dice, but let a pastor or bishop walk up, they were going to be hiding that. But the leadership in the church is so common today until that reverence that we had for them is no longer a thing. And then the just the proliferation of scandals and what they term moral failures, and everybody has sinned and fallen short, and I'm human. And those excuses just don't fly with us. If you're standing up there, you're teaching us about relationship with God and what that means and how He can help us handle our own struggles, then live that. Don't try to make excuses when we find out that you've never had a moral compass. And so I think it's just like your parents. It's just like any other leader. If you and I'm a therapist, I have probably close to 30,000 sessions under my belt. So I'm highly qualified and extremely well educated in every area that I operate in. If you are a parent, it's so long that you can tell us to do something that we don't see you modeling. And the clients that I have, so many of them have very little respect for their parents for that very reason. And so many of them are not speaking to now this is the thing, I have my mom on no contact. I have my dad on no contact. It's the same dynamic, when you don't give us a model that we can respect, we lose respect for it. And it's no longer just because you are a pastor or a bishop or a leader that we're going to listen to or respect you in any way. So if your life, as far as we can tell, is not living up to what you're professing, we're losing respect for you. And as a result, we are losing respect for the institution because it's very difficult to separate the institution from the leader. So they say, well, don't look at the man, look at God. Don't look at, but we're not going to do that as humans. You know, I'm board certified in neuropsychotherapy, so I understand how the mind works and how the brain works and how functioning work and things like that. You're not going to do that. You're going to look at the man in conjunction with the institution. You're going to look at your relationship with God, whether or not you have respect for your pastor or whether or not you don't. This is why we have the big spirituality thing where people are disconnecting from the church and just dealing with their relationship with God.
I,
So all
I,
of it is a result
I
of that.
agree with you totally. However, there's another part to that. I want to hear what Brother Ron has to say. Then I'm gonna come back to you, Brother Ron. What you think about that? Why has the church, Black church, fallen down, or has it? Uh, does it have a impact today? What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think very valid points that you made, Sister Cassandra, if that's okay to say that.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
Cassandra.
very, very valid point. Very good topic to even discuss, especially in the current climate that we're in. Think about in our society politically, right? Where we
Yeah.
are. So I love the topic, but I think to have a meaningful discussion, I think is important to put in perspective we talk about which have the most impact. I think it's important to differentiate influence from impact, right? So we say what has the most influence versus what has the most impact. You think of it this way: influence is the vehicle, right? And then impact is the destination. So we talk about the church, we talk about athletes. Now, athletes have influence and historically have had some influence, but then we talk about impact, we have to not generalize, we have to be more specific. Muhammad Ali had in his influence gave us a powerful impact, right? And we talk about the different athletes, that's one, Jackie Robinson, different one. Now you have some, they're in it, they're phenomenal athletes or phenomenal artists or actors, but you have those that actually their influence, I mean, they all have some level of impact, but whether or not that impact has been beneficial to our community or not, that's the question. I think so. It's important to put that in perspective when we talk about impact versus influence versus impact. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me ask this for clarification. Impact deals with change over time, maybe 50 years, 100 years. You mentioned Ali, his impact will go on still another 50, 100 years. Influence is something that's happening now. It may not, it have some impact, but it may not have as much as that long-term impact might have. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. So the analogy that I used was, we talk about influence being the vehicle, right? And then the impact is the destination. Or another lens we can look through, let's think about a seed being the influence is the seed, and the impact is the harvest from that seed. So again, in fact, I saw something posted the other day, and I think someone mentioned that NBA YoungBoy, who's a current rapper, he's very popular, said that he has more impact than Jesus Christ, right? And I beg to differ. Now, does he have the influence of this culture? Yes, but impact is a whole different discussion, whether or not it's impactful. Now, his influence is going to have some impact, but I wouldn't say, unless there's a tremendous shift in his message, that influence is not going to be positive, it's not going to positively impact our community, right? So that's why it's so important to differentiate when we talk about influence versus impact, right? And not just assuming that one has more impact than the other, because we have to look at that again. That seed is that seed. That harvest is the harvest. Now, whether or not that harvest is going to be something that's desired or something that's going to be more detrimental or harmful to our community. Or we talk about the vehicle. The vehicle is going to get somewhere. Is the destination going to be somewhere where we desire to be as a community, overall positively, or is it going to contribute to that moral decay that Sister Cassandra contributed to? So whether we're talking about entertainment, at least, or the church itself. So again,
That's
very,
why
very
I
good
put
topic.
those particular things together, because for instance, a movie could have so much impact. Let's say Fruitvale Station. I don't know if you've seen that, or some of those other movies that Ryan Coogler has made. That could have an impact 100 years from now. And that's why I'm going to submit that I believe our Black directors have a chance to have a great impact. What do you feel about that?
No, I agree. I agree. It comes to seizing the opportunity, right? And we looking at movies. Let's say, for example, you take someone like that guy with Fruitvale Station, or we talk about the Spike Lees, or those guys that put together these what is it called, the biopics of, whether we talking James Brown, Muhammad Ali, and Michael Jackson is coming out in April, right? Now, how they take and some of those guys are really trying. I say guys, I mean director, female and male, but taking and trying to bring the message that was in the music. Whether with Jackie Robinson being the first to go through the hardships of everything that went with it to have that impact. Now, those guys that's taking this to Hollywood or taking it to the big screen, I think it's important that the message isn't lost. And it's important who they select as the the actors. For example, Denzel Washington played. I mean, again, he brought Malcolm X to life, because of who he is as well, right? The way he delivered, right? And you take Jamie Foxx with Ray Charles, right? I'm talking about the way they delivered. You was able to see beyond the entertainment and so what the underlying message, what those guys and what those ladies was trying to do. And so I think it's very important to go back to your original point that they seize the opportunity, seize the moment, right? To use those stories to galvanize our community, right? To bring us, to elevate us, to bring us to the next level. Otherwise, it can get lost in the entertainment. So NWA, they wrote NWA, very good movie, and there was a message there. Now, how many of us, I mean, as adults, we may have saw it, but how many youth that looked at it and saw that there was youth and it was young adults and it was kids and it was coming from their communities trying to do something different. But whether or not that message was translated, to those that need it most to try to shift their actions, the verdict is still out on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And first is the opportunity. A lot of times, like back in the day, Oscar Micheaux, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He was like the first Black movie maker in the 20s. Made some great movies, but he was such pigeonhole. But he did show some of the up and coming directors that road, like Gordon Parks, who made The Learning Tree. Some of the others, Mario Peoples' dad, he saw what Oscar Micheaux did and said, I can do that too if I have the opportunity. So we didn't have the opportunity so much. You mentioned Jackie Robinson. He, of course, he started that road, or he helped to shine that road. But before him, we didn't have the opportunity. So so many people that were playing in the Negro leagues didn't get that opportunity, who they said were much better than even Jackie Robinson was. They never got the opportunity. Now we have the opportunity. What are we going to do with it? What do you think about the possibility or power of entertainment industry helping to change and have that impact, Cassandra?
That's a loaded question because I kind of agree with Charles Barkley when it came to this role model thing, and I'm an athlete back in the day, because they were saying, well, you're a role model. He said, no, I'm not an athlete. Your role models are people that's in your home with you, people that you engage with on a day-to-day basis, of people. He did not feel that just
I want to interject here though, but you as a psychotherapist, you as a mental health understander, you know that TV, that what they see on the screen can have a great impact, especially if mama and daddy don't, they have an off day or off time. That role model could come from a lot of different places, even their peers on the corner.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. But what I was actually alluding to is that we have to, going back to impact, influence, and what I was actually alluding to when Charles Barkley made that statement, though it was a correct statement that he made and a very relevant statement, the reality though is opposite of that, is what I was trying to say.
Okay. Okay.
This is why you have an explosion of going back to, and I want to, if we can revisit with Ron after I finish this, because I don't think he gave his commentary related to whether or not he feels the Black church is still impactful and or influential today. So we can revisit that. But it goes back to what he's saying, impact versus influence, because now you have 33% of surveyed young Black youth having a career objective to be an influencer or a content creator. That's their career goal. It's in, you know, when you look at the people that's actually being content creators, or what they term influencers, and you're looking at them, okay, why do you think we would listen to you for the next 20, 30 years? Because your career long term is going to generally expand anywhere from 20, 30, 40 years, in some cases 50 years or longer. You someone like me, I don't ever want to, when I retire, it's time for me to go to heaven. Like, retirement is not even part of my vocabulary, only to the degree that I retire from nursing to launch my private practice, right? But I don't ever see myself just being quote unquote retired. So they're in their 20s and they have as a career goal to be a content creator or an influencer. That's a whole problem for me, because it shows that they don't even understand the dynamics of what that is, and how you impact and influence long term based on a lot of factors and a lot of dynamics. Do you have what it takes for people to follow you long term? So they are very right now oriented, which is influence, but they have no idea what impact is. And see, just like whoever this person was that says, I think I've heard of him, but can't even recall the name that Ron said, that feels like he has more influence than Jesus to any generation, shows the delusion of this young generation in the first place. And it goes back to what Charles Barkley was saying, because we're not having people in our immediate environment that are actually mentoring this young generation. So they're being mentored and influenced, not impacted, influenced by social media. They have a whole delusional thought process, even as it relates to their own value that they bring to the space in general. So you launch what you consider a podcast because you think you have something to say, but you don't have something to say that people are going to revere, or you may have people that follow you for a season, but then they move on to the next person. So when we look at, unfortunately, our entertainers are influencing our kids. They're not impacting them in a way that is, in my opinion, healthy. You have me being educated, and I'm at Harvard working on obviously a credential in Harvard Medical School. Gonna be going to Harvard School of working on a master's in religious studies, hopefully next year to start in 2026. They wouldn't even be able to hold that conversation that it requires to get into somewhere like Harvard. But they think that they have given themselves value because they can get in front of a camera and they can garner a certain amount of followers. So
If I may, if
the whole
I may interject, and then I want Ron to comment. If I may interject, I believe that I believe on both sides. It's a double-edged sword. Now, it's a new world, and when we came up, Cassandra, I'm 63, you 62. They have created a new world. I mean, how many times have we had our TV or our phone, and then we went to our young person, hey, can you fix this for me? Hey, can you get this for me? Because it's a whole new world that we have to adjust to. And we have a lot of ways that we used to, that we stick to. Now they may be adjusting to a new world that is coming. And maybe that influencer, he can adjust quick to be able to adjust to all these new changes that are happening that you and I might have problems with. So that's what I would say. But to have lasting value, they must have some type of value beyond just the clicks and the hits and all of those things. So I see it both ways. I see what you're talking about, but I see the possibility of what they're doing. Brother Ron, what's your comment on that?
Yeah. So to go back, and I vaguely remember. So if you could refresh my memory, the statement Charles Barkley made, and I remember something about I'm not a role model. So, and I don't remember what the context of that was. If you could refresh my memory, what was it when he made that statement?
He had, I think it was when he had hit somebody. He was in a legal situation where he had physically attacked somebody that, that
Mhm.
was coming at him sideways.
Mhm.
Charles Barkley had a couple of court cases behind him being aggressive to somebody that's disrespecting him, right?
Okay.
So well, you're a role model. You shouldn't be. I think he punched somebody something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm not a role model for your child. I'm an athlete. I'm just doing my job. You should be your child's role model, not me.
Yeah. So
I'm an athlete. So I understand what he was saying, but that's what he actually was saying. Because
yeah.
they
So
felt he should, because of who he is, he should not have conducted himself in that way. When he think he punched somebody in the face.
yeah. So because I vaguely remembered it was a situation that when he made that statement, I'm not a role model. And to put that in context, I think what he was trying to say that I'm, don't put the pressure on me or don't put
Right.
it on my desk that I have to be. But role models are not all the time by design. Even if you don't set out to be a role model, you're a role model whether you want to be or not. Just by virtue of you being in a
Right.
public eye, you are a role model. Now, what are you modeling? That's the question. And whether you being a positive role model or negative, those that are in the public spotlight are role models. Now, in terms of whether or not your kids or our kids or the youth that's going to follow, it comes with some level of reinforcement of what's right and what's wrong. But then you have some that, again, they're going to be in tune more to the rappers, the athletes, whoever is on the big screen. So again, to go back to that statement was and I get what he probably meant at the time, but it was out of ignorance because nevertheless, he's in the public eye, right? We're talking LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, whoever it may be, some of some of the older, I guess those guys are on the way out if they're not already gone. There's some new names. However, what I'm saying is role model by choice, by choice or not, you're in the spotlight. So
Right.
just to,
Yeah.
so as an
Which is what I was
educator,
actually saying.
yeah. And so as an educator, I've always, especially in working in environments with those that are socially at risk, obviously academically at risk because of the behaviors are going to negatively impact. But again, working in alternative settings and settings like that, I've always subscribed to identify because in any setting, it's only a small percentage of those that are really disruptive that's making the most noise. And those kids the climate of the day can create the culture of a campus, right? Small or big. And so my philosophy has always been to get to those disruptors, right? If you can, because they are leaders. Now, whether they positive leaders or not, most time those guys or girls have people that's following them, whether they admit it or not. So as an educator, again, we're talking about as an administrator or as a classroom teacher, my philosophy has always been to try to get to those individuals because indirectly getting them in some level of putting some structure in place of getting them to buy in to what it is you're offering by virtue of getting them on board, you inadvertently get those other followers on board as well. So that goes back to in our society when you talk about those guys, those directors that make movies, great. They have a message, but it's important who they get to play the roles, right? Because who's going to play the role? The message can get lost in transit if the right person, right? So, for example, if I was going to write a movie, if I was a director, it'd be important to get to, you know, the popular rappers of the day, like I said, NBA young boy who's very popular right now. It would be in the best interest to get to him. Now, maybe he's trying to do it to get the check and try to line his pockets. But if you can get to him in essence, to get it to play a role, but you have access to him to get him to ship. Because if you can get him, and I know he's not an actor, so I'm using it as a rapper, but you can get someone that have that level of influence and you can help shift them, and then in essence, you can shift a larger scale of the culture by getting those individuals because they are. So again, we're talking about the athletes, the entertainers, and it goes back to, I know a part of it, and I haven't touched on it much, but the church, we said the church having an influence, right? We know that the church is the first Black-owned entity in terms of, us having some level of ownership. It was the church before it was anything else, right? Coming up out of, bondage from slavery and to even post-slavery to the prior to having civil rights. It was the Black church that was given some level of autonomy, right? To own, so to say that we own something. So I think because of that, the church had a tremendous amount of impact that led to the HBCUs that we have in different entities that we have as a result. It was really birthed out of the church. Now, as we became more sophisticated as a people, so to speak, because we're in a time where we have more wealth than we ever had in terms of our community, but our social ills, or the moral decay, it's declining. So how do we have so much more resources and money as a community, but yet, because there's a disconnect, and we got away from that foundation of the church. And one of the pastors, I would say, and I listen to various pastors, and I don't really subscribe to a certain denomination. I'm a Christian in terms of Jesus Christ, but I don't get into the sectionalism of denominations. So I couldn't tell you whether it is Baptist, whatever. But Jamal Bryant is one of the. Again, I don't know his real. In terms, I know he's a believer, so don't hold me to it, because I can't. I mean, I don't know what he's saying strictly in church to his congregation. So if there's something that's controversial, I can't really speak to that. But what I can speak to, as a believer, as a person that professes Christ, the way that he's using his platform to galvanize the community to boycott, right? I mean, economically boycott. And it has had a tremendous impact on corporate America, starting with Target, right? And that movement can really take off. It's already taken off because Target has felt the pressure of it. Now, what's the next step to it? And I heard him somewhat of a call to action that the leaders, we need to have a meeting of the minds, bring everyone from every organization, from NAACP, the Urban League, to the fraternities and sororities, the meeting of the minds to come together. Let's put aside our differences, right? Whether we talking about religious, denominations, whatever it may be, bring the meetings of the minds together. So I give him credit. And again, that movement that he's trying to spark, it's already started, but he's really trying to catch on, is birthed out of the Black church. So to go back to that, I think the Black church has in the past had a significant impact, but we lost some of that fervor. But I think we can kind of make full circle and get back to it in this current political climate.
Understood. I will say, I think when nobody is mentioned, as society itself has fallen down, I mean, we know that things that happen today, we didn't know about. They may have happened in the past, but we have all this information of things that are going on negative and so forth. As that has happened, the church has fallen down too, as well as society has been more permissive in showing LGBT community being okay with abuses and different things, not putting up those fences on those things. All that has affected the Black community. We used to have that minister, as Cassandra said, that he was revered, much more so. But we see him as human, and him going out there stealing, sleeping with another man's wife, and all of those things have filtered down to have an effect where we don't see the reverence anymore. and it does affect that institution. It's affected it. So we say, why? Why do we want to get involved? And when they know more better than us. What do you say to that, Cassandra?
I absolutely agree. I highly respect what Pastor Jamal Harrison Bryan is doing. Of course, he's AME raised. He just happens to be pastoring a Baptist church because he took over Bishop Eddie Long's church, but he's AME Methodist at the core of his foundation. My first cousin, Bishop James Dixon, is the president of our NAACP here in Houston. He
You
does a
still
lot.
at Northwest Community?
Yeah, he pastors Northwest, our Community of Faith. Actually, it was Northwest Community Baptist Church back in the day. It's now the Community of Faith. He's very much on the front lines of community activism and people like Al Green and people like that. But when you look at the institution of the church, which is what I was addressing, you have pastors like, Freddie Haynes out of Dallas and people like that who generally is going to just mainly be Baptist oriented pastors, with the exception of Pastor Bryant, who are doing a lot of community activism from the church space. Generally, they're going to be Baptist. I definitely don't see Church of God in Christ, which I grew up Kojic and PAW and these other Pentecostal type religions doing much in this space of activism and looking at the church itself as a leader. We don't have the influence, the church itself. You have some
Can
pastors.
I interject and ask this? Didn't the larger community help to dilute the power of the church by splitting us, dividing us, as well as giving some people money and good word, good reputation, and taking it away from somebody who tried to fight against them and so forth. The larger community, when I say larger community, I mean white community, they were great at doing that. They helped to dilute the black church.
I don't really think that what white people did to the black church is the issue. I think what the black church leadership has done to the black church is we're not going to follow anything and anybody alone who does not have ethical, moral, and or leadership integrity. We're just not. I don't care if it's in a church, I don't care where it is. When we see now, because of social media, we're able to see a lot of the debauchery that used to be hidden. So you used to could
That's what I was talking about
that
earlier.
what stays in the house, what goes on in the house stays in the house. The narrative is no longer the thing. So now that, as the old folks used to say, now that your slip is showing and we can really see what's going on with you in the moral decay, the unethical behavior, the manipulation, the patriarchy, and everything else, people are just exiting stage left. I was raised in the church for real, for real, for real. It takes everything I can to get up and go to church on Sunday. And the only reason why I think I go at this point is because of how I was raised. Like I just see my grandparents just flipping over in their grave if I don't go to a church on Sunday, physically. It really comes from feelings of guilt rather than me feeling like, oh, I just really need to be in church. When I was growing up, I absolutely loved going to church. Like, I'm not these people that felt like, oh, I didn't want to go and I was made. We were made to go, but I loved it. We were in church all the time. I loved it. We respected it. We respected our leadership. We revered them. They're as common as we are today. They're actually in worse sin than we are, but you're trying to tell us to live holy and live a certain type of way. So it has no significant info because even following Pastor Brian, I didn't follow him because of a church move. I followed him because of what he was doing in the political space. It wasn't the church called to, or, it wasn't a church call to action. It was a Pastor Brian and people that he was close to called to action that kind of fit, but it wasn't the church body that spearheaded that we're not going to target move. So he happens to be a pastor, but Pastor Brian was a political activist before he was a pastor. He was the youth director for the NAACP in his early 20s. He was a political activist first.
Mhm.
So when we look at who we are actually really following, we're not following the church with these types of political engagements or stance or things that we're doing as a Black collective. We're not following the church, we're following political leaders that are
I would
heritage
submit to you
church.
that
So I
the
don't see the
TV
Black
and
church
the
being.
media over years has eroded our overall, not just Black people, but society's overall moral integrity.
Right.
TV, media, and all of those things. But that's why I submit to you, that's one reason I submit to you that the Black directors who are getting a lot more
Yeah.
power, ability, you first have to have the ability. So you got Ryan Coogler, Spike Lee, Ava DuVernay, uh, who are able to show a picture and tell a story that has not been told before in a way that, I mean, if you look at a movie like Wakanda Forever, I know it's a make believe. I know it's a make believe, but what she did and the portrait she painted with that, I mean, what he did, that's Ryan Coogler. Across the board, and so many more directors are getting there. And how many, and they are really now just understanding, but Tyler Perry brought it out, how many Black folks go to movies. Black folks are a major part of the movie ticket buying public. And that, in my opinion, is where it's going to be because Black movies, you can tell a story that can connect with people in such a way that they can take that with them and it can have an impact on their mind. Ron, did you want to comment on any of that? I would, and I'm gonna go to what I believe are the top 10 impactful people, Black people that are out there. Ron, you have anything about what we just talked about?
Well, as it pertains to when we talk about the church, I think and as Sister Cassandra was saying that Pastor Jamal Bryant was birthed out of the activism and being in that space, and now he's a pastor. But I think any significant change that has happened that's going to take place, there's still a connection. In other words, it's not two. It should, even though it comes across as two entities, it's activism over here and the churches over here. The best impact is when we merge, when that is merged, when we understand that our plight is not merely social. Yes, we do need the resource. We need to find a way to galvanize and come together and pool resources and economic, independence by not spending money where we're not welcome. It's all of those things, but that's not detached from spirituality. It
I
shouldn't be,
never
right?
said it was
No,
detached.
no, I'm not
Okay,
saying
so
it's completely.
I want to make sure that you're
Go ahead.
hearing me correctly. I never said it was detached. I
Yeah,
said
we understand that.
when you look at who drives what is happening with Black America today,
Mhm.
it is not the entity of the Black church. My cousin, who's president of NAACP, pastors a church. He does a lot of things that involve his church congregation. But when you're looking at what we look to that's driving how we're moving as a Black race of people today, It is not the entity of the Black church. It may be pastors that are leaders in the church. Back in the day, it was the church. It was actually the concept of the ecosystem of the Black church.
Mhm.
You
I
should
agree with that.
drive how we
I
move
think
as
he was
a
agreeing with you
people.
too.
That's not the case today. I'm not saying that it's completely separate. I'm saying the church today does not have the church itself, the entity of the Black church, does
Mhm.
not have the impact nor the influence of the Black community today.
I agree with that.
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying. I didn't
yeah,
say totally separate political over here and spirituality is. We just debated this last week when I was at Harvard at my class in Harvard. So this is a conversation that I'm well versed in. So I'm
Right.
yeah, he
just
wasn't saying that
that's
though.
So,
that's
He wasn't saying that.
and you may,
Go ahead, Ron.
no, you may have, maybe I miscommunicated. I was never
yeah,
saying,
I didn't say it was separate. I
no,
said
okay,
it's
okay,
not
okay. So,
nearly
so
as impactful
listen
nor
what I'm saying to you. I never alluded that you thought that. I was only taking your conversation and making it inclusive of kind of in continuation of it. So I never thought that you think that. I'm just giving my position on what I think is going on in terms of you do have a political space, right, and activism, and you do have the church, and it's more effective if there's a merger. They're not too separate. I don't think that you saying that or not, but what I am saying is if we're going to have a real shift and change and any significant change that have ever happened in the past, it wasn't in isolation. Whether we talk of Harriet Tubman, but that she may have been the force, the face, but that was not without prayer, right? So it's not this and that. It's still one and the same, right? So the grandmother that was praying, that probably didn't have a fifth grade education, was just as instrumental than Martin Luther King, who was out in the streets and doing the things he's doing. So the Bible say, if we're going to be straight up, is it say these people which are called by my name will humble themselves and pray. So our plight, the answer is not just political activism. It is we're not detached from spirituality, from the word, not religion, but a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, right? So that's my position. So it would work best if we merge that and not allow the separation. And I know legally, talking about the separated church and state, that's for reasons, legality, but in terms of we can't subscribe to that as believers and think that the political aspect is over here and the religious aspect over here. We have to know that we got to be boots on the ground all the way and find a way to galvanize and not allow the the message to be limited to the church. But when I'm talking about the church as in the four walls or just the community of believers, no, we're one and the same. So we have to find a way to get out and not be so heavenly minded that we know earthly good, or not be so politically connected that we think we can do this through sheer, activism and not having the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of God. That's my position on that.
I think we're having two totally different
We're
conversations.
not. I think you want to debate, and I don't mind debating with you.
Sir, I'm not trying. Oh, I don't mind debating, but that's not
Okay.
what this is. I think we're having two total. Baruti can tell
I
you I
don't see
love
that.
to
I see
debate,
that.
but I
I
don't
don't.
think.
I
Hold on
say. I
one
think y'all are
second.
saying the same thing.
No, we're not. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I think we're having two totally different conversations.
We're
Okay.
not.
Conversation is today in this specific moment in time. Is the Black church impactful? How how do you view the impact and influence of the Black church today? Not what it used to be. We already know how impactful the Black church historically has been. But the conversation, that's not the conversation that I perceived that we were having. We're looking at influence today. Is it impactful and influential today? And what does that look like today.
As the one that
So
made the
that's
topic,
what I
if I
think
can,
your conversation is looking at historically what we have done and how we get back to it. That's a
as the
credible
one that made
conversation. But I didn't think
the
that was
topic,
the conversation.
if I can share this, I think what he's saying is it historically has been the way for us to move forward. Yes, we have lost
Yeah.
that fervor, but if we are ever going to really move forward, we have to get some of that back so that we can
We
combine
know that.
and have a stronger force.
We
Am I correct
understand
in
that.
that, Brother Ron?
Yes, you are. So
That's
to put that,
exactly what he was
go ahead,
saying.
go ahead. Go
But
ahead,
I
go
was
ahead.
saying that's a different conversation
It's
than
not a different
the
conversation. It's not. It's
influence of
not.
the black. Okay, so elaborate on how you see today the influence or impact as you defined it of the black church today, not what gets us back or where we've been in the past. What is your commentary based on where how influential the black church is today in 2025 amongst, say, the generation of 40-year-olds and younger? How influential is the black church for them today? Let's deal
If
with right now.
so, if we dealing right now, you cannot separate Jamal Bryant, the pastor, from Jamal Bryant, the activist. So what he's doing, he's a pastor. He's using his platform. His platform is the fact that he's a pastor of a large congregation. So now whether or not we're reaching everyone or whether some people feel detached. For example, you said that you don't prefer to go to church because of the elements, right? And what happens if you, who sound like you're very versed in terms of the political climate, right, and the social ills that exist, what happens if you detach from the church for those reasons? Then what happens? Because who's going to hold the church accountable if that's the case? So we have to make sure that it's not two separate bodies. It's one and the same. We are who we are. Whether we talking about Ron Angeletti, the educator, Ron Angeletti, the advocate, Ron Angeletti, the believer, I'm the same person. I don't put a hat on over here and change the hat over here. I have to be me. Now, he who wins souls must be wise, right? But I don't detach from that. So if you asking the question, what impact is the church having? The church is having an impact because if you take a Tony Evans, who's going to give a message, and Ryan Angeletti subscribe to the doctrine that he's teaching, when I go out into society to do what I do, whether as an author, as an educator, as an advocate, I'm taking that. So that church has had some impact, influence on me, is going to push the ultimate to the impact. So it won't just be me, it still will be attached to the church. So if you asking my commentary on what do I say about it, yes, the church does have an impact. It does have an impact today. It does. Now, we're not limited to, what it was at the time. But again, I go back that the black church is the first black-owned entity in America. The first, right? Now, although we have evolved in terms of we have millionaires and even billionaires, that don't change the fact that's still the fundamental foundation. Now, our job for those that are enlightened is to merge and not to feel separated. And we got to be over here. And we go to what you're talking about, Church of God in Christ, of the Baptist Church, of the Methodist Church, and we all professing Jesus Christ. Again, it goes back. He who wins souls must be wise, right? And if it says these people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, all that scripture, that's not my words. And it said that these people which are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my faith, turn from the wicked. Then will I hear their land. So our land being healed and our social ills and the things that we frustrated about is not going to be done in isolation from Christ, right? But he's going to use us, right? The harvest is plenty, but the labors are few, right? We can't get so frustrated and so detached that we're going to stay home and not go to church and not get involved in that because we have our responsibility don't change.
I
That's a
will always be
that's a
involved with
powerful message.
I want you, what you said is correct, but I still, I don't, I want you to address very specifically
We are
the
toward the end of our
impact and
show.
influence of the black
Going on.
church
for the rest.
Entity that, hold on, let's have a real conversation that so we can walk away with something that means something and not just talking points. The institution of the Black church and its impact and in influence in society today, not isolated individuals and what they're doing. When you look at the institution of the Black church, I want you to key into what the conversation actually is. What is that impact and influence today as opposed to how it used to impact Black culture back in the day? The church body itself was an institution that impacted Black America back in the day. I do not see the church body itself having that influence, and I'm a strong believer in the institution of the church. I would never not be a part of that, but I don't have a drive for that like I used to, but I would never not be a part of it. So I agree with what you're saying. However, you're not addressing the institution of the Black church. You're addressing individuals like my cousin, Pastor Brian, and people, Freddie Haynes, and people that may be doing things that are connected to the church body. But where is your conversation as it relates to the institution of the Black church and its impact on Black America today? That's the conversation that I'm listening for that I still haven't heard yet.
So so you're asking so what is your specific question? I'm
Just what
having
I
trouble
said. How do you see the institution of the Black church as an institution
So what
impacting Black America? That is very clear. The institution of the Black. Do you see us as Black people following a Black church entity as it relates to how we govern ourselves? I went to 2HB, I went to Howard University in Prairie View. I'm very, very rooted in Black culture. But how do you see us as a race and culture of people being impacted and influenced by the institution of the Black church? Is that an institution that you see the majority of our culture looking to for guidance, for leadership, but things of that nature as it relates to Black culture? I'm not talking about specific people, and I'm definitely not separating political from that way in the way that you're stating it. How do you see the institution impacting the culture today? That's the question that Baruti asked that I still haven't heard you address.
Okay, so if you want me to tell you, first of all, I personally think that the institutionalization of religion has did more harm to the Black community than help. So that's what we talk about: religion versus
I'm not
relationship.
saying anything about religion. That's okay.
You asked me a question, and
let's put a pin
listen.
in
You
it,
asked me a question.
because I don't think
You
you're
asked me
understanding.
at least be fair
I'm
enough
not
to hear me.
dealing
Okay,
with
Whether you disagree
hold
or
on,
not,
guys.
whether you
Hold on.
disagree with me or not, let me allow
I'm
me to
not
answer.
disagreeing with anything you're saying. I
You
just
talking
don't think
over me
you're
though. You
addressing
talking
the
over me.
question.
I
I'm
listened to
not
everything you
talking
said, and now I'm trying to
religion. I'm
respond.
talking about the institution.
Okay, guys, stop. Please, stop.
I'm talking about religion.
Okay, let's have enough. We at the end, and we can settle that another time. Maybe y'all can text or do
It ain't
something
that
on
important.
Facebook or something. But we're not gonna settle that. We're not gonna settle that.
No.
And
But I want to be fair.
Ron, go ahead, Ron.
I want to be fair because if you're posing a question, I want you to be fair enough to allow me to respond. And each
But
time I
you're
open
dealing
up the,
with religion.
you're talking.
I'm
No, go
talking
ahead.
about
Let him talk, Cassandra, please.
Listen.
Okay.
Listen. My position as it pertains to the church, and I'm trying to say this as respectful as I know how to say it to you. You have spoke about your words about not going, although you a believer, then you spoke about not going to the church. Again, I believe that religion did more harm to our community than unity. The religion, not the relationship. We missing the relationship piece. So when I talk about being an activist, it's not different from that. And you want to know about the institution of the church, the institutionalization has caused a problem. And you keep saying about what institution you went to, Prairie View, Harvard. And so we get so caught up in those things, and that's a detachment from the plight that we're in as a community. You could be so, again, I say you could be so heavenly minded, earthly good, or you could be so
I'm not
educated
heavily,
that
I'm
the
not heavily minded.
education creates a level of ignorance, right? So nothing wrong with you being educated, but if you don't know how to take that, right? He who wins souls must be wise. You don't know how to take that and be able to say, Paul said what? That I became also that I may win some. So if you don't know how to detach from and understand, you're still going to be you, but the way that you're delivering it could be more of a barrier than something that attracts. So we have to be careful. So you're asking again about the institution of the church. Me personally, I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe that we have to be wise. He who wins so must be wise. And the wisdom is going to be through the relationship, not through religious dogma, right? Or just through historical or ritualistic way of doing things. No, that's not going to help us. It hasn't
Are
helped us.
you
So we
speaking
have to
of,
be
All right,
serious
guys,
about doing that.
speaking
it's
of
already an
salvation?
hour. It's already an hour
Okay,
we've
let
been
me
on.
just clarify. Are you
I
speaking
wanted to
at
talk about,
salvation? Are you speaking
I
related to
wanted to talk about
salvation? When you
who's the
saying
most
he that wins
impactful.
souls are
I would
wise?
like to finish with that, Cassandra. I would like to finish with that.
You can.
Who
He's
are the most
speaking of
impactful?
salvation. That's the
That
question
would
we're
be
dealing with, though.
a good thing. I would say in the realm today, number 10 would be Cory Booker. Everybody know who he is. He is
Yeah.
the senator from New Jersey. After that, I would say Kathy Hughes. Kathy Hughes is the owner of Radio One. Radio One is a radio network of, that 102 is a part of it. Many other stations are a part of it. She has about 25 or so. So she's very impactful. Uh, Number 8 is Ryan Coogler, I believe. This is my list. Ryan Coogler is up and coming director. Well, he's already arrived. He's not up and coming. And he's made some very impactful movies. Number 7, I would say it's Snoop Dogg, going back to how a rapper can change his trajectory. Somebody who was a gangbanger and all of those particular things. Now he's at the Olympics and he's prime time everywhere. So really changed his whole trajectory. I would say Denzel is next, number 6. So impact can mean a whole lot of different things. Now, maybe 5 years ago, Louis Farrakhan was on there. 10 years ago, Jesse Jackson was on there. So it changes. I would still have Michael Jordan on there, number 4. It's about opportunity and what they are doing with their opportunity. Also, so you mentioned NBA Youngboy. I haven't heard of him. I mean, I heard of him, but I haven't seen any impact.
Yeah, I
So,
don't know.
however, is Tupac still having some impact? Yes. Because of what he did when he was out there, even though all of it wasn't positive, but his trajectory is changing. Booker T. Washington, his impact, what he did back in the day, still has a great deal of impact today from what he did way in the past. He started a school and a whole train of thought, as did W.E.B. Du Bois. But W.E.B. Du Bois didn't build an institution. Well, he did. Let me take that back. He built the NAACP. He was a part of its founding. So impact, it takes a while to understand that. Now, to surmise that conversation you all were having, the church is not as impactful as it used to be. However, Al Sharpton is still out there. You mentioned Jamal Bryant. Every area has some pastors who are out there. Now, the world has changed. They don't affect things the same way. They're online now. They have different ways of talking to their community. Maybe they do church online, and they only have 30 people in their congregation, but they have 1,000 online. So it's a whole different impact, and that projects a whole different thing. That's my whole point. Things change, and you have to adjust to the new ways. So just judging by the old ways, we can't totally factor in how the new ways handle. Okay, let's have our final statement as we close. Cassandra?
Okay, so when I look at impact, I look at long-term trajectory. It's not, I mean, yes, I am well educated, but this is not about my education. I brought my education in to validate certain points, but I don't worship my education. And I absolutely understand winning souls for Christ and the salvation move. However, that was not the conversation that I was having. The conversation that I'm having is impact long term. What is it doing to move our race forward? It's not a matter of denominationalism or whether or not I choose to go sit in a physical building. I'm always going to be connected to the institution of the church, which is who I am and what I do. But as it relates to the institution of the Black church, irregardless to religious belief systems, I don't even ascribe to a religious belief system. I attend a non-denominational church. So it's not even a matter of religion or any of that. It is the institution and how impactful it is, how it used to drive the overall agenda of the Black community and uh, uh, the black culture. It no longer does that for several reasons. So as we're looking at trajectory, as we're looking at long-term impact as an influence, it has greatly lost its impact and influence. And I don't know if we would ever get it back in our lifetime. I honestly don't think that we will, based on a lot of factors. But because I think that role that the Black institution of church has shifted outside of the church space. And this is what we're seeing when we are seeing other leaders and people that have speaking voices that are speaking to the culture at large, whether you agree with them or not. People that have now been given the stage that kind of shape how we're thinking more as a Black culture people than the institution of the Black church. So I think it's a broad conversation. It's an in-depth conversation. Is We're not talking about specifically winning souls to Christ. That's the mission of the church, but we're talking about the impact on culture. That's the conversation that I'm actually having. And so
Understood.
I do not see that the institution of the Black church is impacting culture today in any significant way. I don't. I think that impact and influence has shifted to many other spaces, and people outside of that arena has much more impact and influence than the church body itself. So
That's
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 my
fair
take.
enough. How can people contact you, or if they want to
Well,
continue the conversation with you?
okay, my name is Cassandra Barnes Mallet. I mean, not Barnes Mallet. Cassandra Denise Barnes, Cassandra D. Barnes, and I own the Victoria Barnes Mental Health and Wellness Center. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, social media platforms, and I'm a neuropsychotherapist, board certified in trauma informed care, and various other certifications. And so I love rich conversation that comes with a lot of depth. So I love these conversations. So, but if you need a good therapist, then reach out, because that's what I do every day. I see clients, I provide psychological therapy and mental health wellness, um, as a part of my business.
Yes, ma'am. And
Great,
I've seen
always
it in
great to be
action
here.
in Galveston. That was some of the most impactful teaching on
Yeah,
subject. I forgot the subject matter,
yeah,
but it'll come back to me, and
yeah.
because I
Subconscious
wrote it down, it
mind
was powerful.
programming and how it impacts how we engage today. It's always a powerful conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Brother
So thank
Ron.
you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Brother Ron, can you take us home and finish us out with outlook on culture? What's most impactful? Outlook and give any communication or way somebody can communicate with you if they want to talk with you further.
Yeah, again, thanks for allowing me to be a part of the conversation. Um, again, I mean, I think that we're better as a people. And when I say as a people, of course, Black community, because being by virtue of being a part of the Black community, but we're not limited to that. I know this conversation that we're looking through the lenses as African Americans, but uh, uh, there's no way to really, truly turn a blind eye to or at least I haven't found effective, and I don't desire to turn a blind eye because our society, yeah, there's some things needs to be addressed in our community, but the issues that we face are not limited to social issues. There's some spiritual deficits, that exist, and so we're talking about again the institution of the church in the institution of the church, in my opinion, while some things was born out of the church, and I still subscribe to that. It did more harm than help, right? And so when you see, what are we talking about? Athletes, pastors, singers, actors on the big screen, is those that able to take their talents, right? If it's an athlete, someone that can take their talent, So what Colin Kaepernick did, although we know him, Colin Kaepernick, because he was a phenomenal football player, but he's most known now for taking a stand that really that he paid a heavy price for, right? And no one is not going to convince me that he didn't extract some of that courage from the church. So indirectly, his upbringing had an influence. So by virtue of that, the church does have influence. It may not look the same, right? And if you go and look, and I would encourage you to go and look, and I'm trying to think of the name of the guy, but I think it's Vernon Davis or Vernon Jordan. Is the Vernon Davis, whatever his name is his story. And you can look at it, it's probably on Netflix, you can Google on YouTube. But he's the guy, Martin Luther King ultimately came in and took over kind of was the next pastor following him. His first name is Vernon, I remember. But some of the things that was going on in that particular town, and he was one of the first to not only have this idea of being passive as believers and that we going to heaven and we're going to endure these hardships, but he understood the power of the dollar, right? And self-sufficiency. And I wish I remember the name of it. I would encourage you to go and look at it. But it's that. So it may not look the same, as Sister Cassandra. And I get, you know, some of the frustration in it. But again, it may not look the same, but I still believe the church does have influence. And the goal is to try to take and again galvanize and not to have the separation, entertainment over here, sports over here, rappers over here, but to bring those believers under the same, and we have a common goal is to push the culture forward, right? And so, so that's my take on the conversation. So that's why I start off by saying we have to differentiate impact and influence, right? We talk about the church, one is some churches seek to entertain and some seek to empower, right? And nothing wrong with entertainment, but the merger should be, let's use that to empower, right? So if I'm a basketball player, I'm LeBron James, and they say shut up and dribble. No, I'm not going to shut up and dribble, because how you expect me to focus just on basketball when these things are going on in our society? So I'm LeBron James, the basketball player, but I'm still LeBron James, the African American, that's subjected to that. I may not personally be subjected to it because I'm negated and I'm away from it, but I have to stay connected to the plane, right? And so we're better as a community when we don't detach and we don't put dividers up or partitions between those various, institutions, athletes, actors, musicians in the church. We one and the same, and so that's my position. So again, I'm Ron Angeletti. My book, Climb, Uplift, and Build is at ronangelettibooks.com.
Do you have a book handy you can show up to, people?
Let me see if I have it.
I have my 9th book coming out, by the way. Pull it
Can
back.
you see it? I'm kind of blurry looking. Is it there?
There you go. Climb,
Okay.
uplift, and build.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
A
And you can
great
find it,
message in this book. And educator. I'm an educator too. Cassandra's a psycho. Am I saying the right psychotherapist? That's okay?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. So we come from an educated background, but we still are among and a part of the people. And so the message, whatever message gets impacted affects us, and we want to affect our community also. And I thank everybody for joining us. It's been a powerful conversation. A lot of thoughts came about and so forth. Hit me up if you all want to comment on it, and I'll share it with our guests, and I'll let them know what you said. So we'll see you next time. This is the Sourceseeker Hour, 179th episode. The next one will be the 180. We've been doing this a while. We thank you, and we'll see you next time.